This is the Voice of the Voter debate with candidates for the 138th Assembly District Democratic primary. Harry Bronson and Alex Udelson will take questions submitted by the public and reporters from WDKX, the Democrat and Chronicle, 13 WHAM, City Newspaper, and WXXI. Here's your moderator, Evan Dawson.
Good evening and welcome to tonight's Voice of the Voter debate. I'm Evan Dawson, host of Connections on WXXI Radio, and I'll be your moderator tonight. This debate is between the candidates in the Democratic primary for the 138th Assembly District. That district includes the towns of Chili and Henrietta and parts of the city of Rochester. The candidates are Harry Bronson. He's the incumbent and has been in the Assembly since 2011. And Alex Udelson. He's the chief of staff for Rochester Mayor Lovely Warren. The winner will be the Democratic candidate for the 138th Assembly District in November's general election. Harry Bronson will be running on the ballot in the general election, already securing the Working Families and Independence party lines. The Republican candidate is Peter Vasquez. Again, the primary election is Tuesday, June 23rd, and because of the coronavirus pandemic, Governor Andrew Cuomo is allowing absentee voting for the primary election. So we want to share with you some key dates now. If you want to request an absentee ballot by mail, your application must be postmarked by this coming Tuesday, June 16th. If you want to request an absentee ballot in person, the last day you can do that is Monday, June 22nd. If you're mailing in your absentee ballot, it's got to be postmarked by Tuesday, June 23rd, primary day. If you want to submit it in person to the Monroe County Board of Elections, the last day to do that is also on primary day, June 23rd. All absentee ballots must be received by the Board of Elections by June 30th. Early voting will take place the 13th through the 21st of June. You can check the Monroe County website for details. Polls will be open on primary day from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. Now that we have all of that information out of the way, let's meet the panelists who will be asking questions with me tonight. Tariq Spence from WDKX Radio, Dan Schrack from 13 WHAM News. Joining us via Skype is Brian Sharp from the Democrat and Chronicle and Jeremy Mole from City Newspaper. As you can see, we're all practicing physical distancing, plenty of space between the candidates and the panelists tonight. Some brief ground rules to quickly go over for you. Candidates will not speak out of order. They will stick to the agreed upon time limits. Candidates will have 60 seconds to answer a question. Their opponent will have 60 seconds to respond. The candidate that was asked the question first will get a 30-second rebuttal. All other rebuttals are at my and the panel's discretion. Opening and closing statements are 60 seconds. You can join the conversation happening on Twitter. Use the hashtag VOVdebate to jump in. And let's get started now with some opening remarks. Beginning these 60-second opening statements, the order of which was determined by a coin toss before we went on the air. First, we will hear from Alex Udelson.
Well, thank you, Evan, and thank you to everyone tuning in at home for this important forum. For those of you who don't know me, I am Alex Udelson. I was born and raised in this district. I went to public schools in this district. I had the honor of serving as a policy advisor in President Obama's White House and as chief of staff for the city of Rochester. You know, I was watching a speech from President Obama last week, and I was struck not only by the fact that we had a president who was speaking in complete sentences again, but that he specifically felt the need to call out the importance of electing leaders on the state and local level from a new generation that are willing to take these big issues that we're facing in Rochester and across our nation, like healthcare, like police brutality, like racial injustice, and to come up with the big systematic changes that we need to implement here in Rochester. You know, I've known Assemblyman Bronson a long time. I consider him a friend and a good person. But I have serious issues about his record on some key issues, like his defense of the city school board, like his record on vaccines, and like his record on campaign finance reform. And I'm very grateful to all of our media partners tonight and to everyone watching at home to give us these forum to discuss these ideas so that we can have the best candidate in November.
Thank you. And now we go to Harry Bronson.
Thank you to the Voice of Voters for having this forum this evening, and thank you for all of you who are tuning in and practicing and participating in democracy. These are difficult times. Our families are struggling because of COVID-19, because of the health crisis, as well as the economic crisis. I grew up in a family of 12 children on a small farm on the southern tier. My mom and dad both worked full-time jobs as well as running the farm. They did that to put food on the table, to pay the bills, just like many of the families are trying to do here in the 138th Assembly District. You know me as a strong progressive leader with results. Results like passing the minimum wage so that you can provide for your family. Results like the Paid Family Leave Act. And then most recently, results with the huge package of COVID-19 helping our families stay in their homes and not being evicted if they're renters or having their mortgages foreclosed. We also just recently, because of the tragedy of George Floyd and the many other Black lives that we've lost, far too many, at the hands of police officers, we have passed one of the most aggressive police accountability packages just this past week. I ask for your support. You have entrusted me in the past. You know I can deliver. I ask for your support again this year.
All right, thanks to both of you. And here's our first question tonight. Mr. Bronson, you'll respond first. In a recent debate, Mr. Bronson, you said that you would work to promote full equality for Black Americans, but you did not cite any specific ideas or specific aims to achieve this. So let's get specific tonight. I hope both candidates can describe very specific ideas, starting with an answer to a question that has now taken center stage across the country. Mr. Bronson, I'll start with you on this. Do you support defunding police at all or any levels and reforming police missions?
I absolutely support reforming law enforcement. We just passed, I co-sponsored bills that would remove the shield of secrecy and allow transparency with our law enforcement officers on disciplinary action. We passed laws that made it legal to film and record through cell phones and otherwise. We have passed laws to make it so that police officers cannot use racial profiling as they're performing their duties. Many of those things we've done. That's just in law enforcement. But we have disparities for people of color in healthcare, in housing, and in education. I participated in President Obama's My Brother's Keeper, where we put together educational programs to help educate our young men of color. I will continue those items and continue to work to make sure that we meet our ideal of equality for all.
Mr. Udelson.
Sure. So this is a hugely important topic, and I think we should be specific. Some of the bills that Assemblyman Bronson said about being able to record police encounters, the First Amendment gave us that right. And I think there's a lot more that we could do in Albany rather than some of the performative things that we've seen leaders do. One is the legalization of marijuana. That is probably one of the top issues that has impacted Black and brown families in this city and across the country. And I think that that tax revenue needs to go into communities of color and to entrepreneurial opportunities so that we don't have a large corporation opening up a recreational marijuana store while the folks who were most impacted by the drug enforcement and drug trade don't get to do it. Now, I think at the same time, we need to take a look at addressing police brutality. I do support looking at defunding the police, but I think it's important that we define what that is. That is not abolishing the police, which I do not support. That is looking at our funding levels across the state, city, county, looking at our funding levels and making sure that we're investing in the communities that need resources and not over-investing in law enforcement. But I still maintain that we have a great chief here in the city of Rochester that is committed to community policing and that we can work at the appropriate funding levels to get things done.
Okay.
The repeal of 50A was important, but there's so much more to do in Albany.
And Mr. Bronson, can you clarify as well, on the defund the police movement, is there a yes or no for you there?
On the defunding, I support defunding police officers and the law enforcement because we need to move those funds into supporting communities of color. You know, my opponent is oftentimes suggesting that we need change in Albany, but then he quotes bills that I co-sponsor, bills that I helped to draft language on, like the legalization of adult recreational use of marijuana. And I take the lead from a woman of color, the majority leader, Crystal Peoples-Stokes. Just like this week when we passed bills to hold law enforcement accountable, those bills came out of negotiations and the leadership of our Assembly Black Caucus. I will continue to work with and follow the leadership of people of color as they move to develop programs and policies that we need to move us closer to equity for people of color.
And I know you want to have a brief response. Go ahead, Alex.
Sure, very quickly, you know, I think it's important that we talk about who we can trust on these issues. You know, after Michael Brown was killed, after Philando Castile was killed, after Alton Sterling was killed, after Tamir Rice was killed, Assemblyman Bronson continued to take money from police unions. And the repeal of 50A was actually proposed in 2014, 2015, 2016, 2017, 2018. It had tons of Democratic co-sponsors, but not Assemblyman Bronson. And so I think we should elect someone who never would have taken that money from police unions and would have always supported the repeal of 50A and other important laws so that we can rebuild the trust between the police and the community that they serve.
Okay, and to be fair, Harry, go ahead.
Sure. You know, I'm a labor guy. I've been a labor attorney for most of my adult life. Of course, unions support me. Police unions support me because I help to protect their pensions. They support me because I fought against the Constitutional Convention that could have taken some of their rights to bargain and collectively bargain away. They support me because I was part of moving forward so that we had the move over law. You know that law. That's the one that requires you to move over when there's a police car that has pulled someone over on the thruway. These are the reasons that law enforcement has supported me. I have returned those funds and given them to 3 different organizations, one of them Rochester Black Pride. I am proud to have stood with them, and I am proud to have seen them, heard them, and continue to stand with them. And I will work side by side and stand with people of color.
The next question comes from Tariq Spence from WDKX. Alex Udelson will respond first. Tariq.
I want to stay on that topic for a minute. Defunding was started basically as a conversation because of George Floyd. But I wanted to know, how diverse is your office, and how diverse will your office be in hearing all the real issues that are going forward in this upcoming election?
So thank you for that question, Tariq. I believe that if people don't see themselves in government, then that government won't accurately reflect the diversity of our community. This is one of the most diverse assembly districts probably in the entire state. You have everything from farms to low-income housing projects to some of the wealthiest communities in our entire region. And I believe in having a diverse office. Our office, the mayor's office proper, which I directly oversee, is at least 50% minority at the last count. And that's something that I am absolutely committed to, is having diverse representation in my assembly office so that we can have representatives of every community represented in their government. I think that's a critical issue.
Assemblyman Bronson.
Sure. Many of you know I own a coffee house as well. And we do have people of color working at our coffee house. Also, I have had people of color working in my assembly direct office here in the district office. But certainly throughout the assembly, just like the mayor's office, we have a large group of people of color working. I am committed to diversity. I'm a gay man, and as such, I always try to promote folks. And I will continue when people come and I have openings. I don't have a lot of openings. We don't have a very big staff as an assembly member. But certainly, I have no problem with hiring people of color. And currently, my staff at my coffee house is diverse with people of color.
Okay. Next question. Let's go over to Brian Sharp from the Democrat and Chronicle. With our next question, Harry Bronson will respond first.
Yes, Assemblyman Bronson, changing topics here to one of the issues that divide you both quite clearly, the city school district. You have touted a monitor as an avenue for needed change at RCSD. Mr. Udelson has panned this as a Band-Aid. I think his quote is, "a monitor to monitor the monitors who are supervising the monitor of the superintendent." Why should we expect things to change in a district with more public hearings, reports, oversight, if we already had that with a distinguished educator who is doing much of the same? And why was the mayor's role reduced in involvement with this monitor?
Well, first of all, the distinguished educator's role and responsibility was not to monitor. His role and responsibility was to evaluate and to report and to make recommendations, and he did that. He made many recommendations about academic changes and fiscal changes and governance changes, all 3 areas. What the monitor will do, and we're using this not only in the City of Rochester School District, but also in the Hempstead School District and the Wyandanch School District. What the monitor will do is come in. That person has expertise. A woman who was appointed here locally has expertise in turning struggling schools around. That monitor will hold public hearings to listen to the voices of parents and families here in the city of Rochester. Those hearings will be on governance, on academic, and on the finances of the school district. The monitor then will be involved in negotiating and developing a strategic plan both on the finances as well as the academic strategies. And then lastly, that monitor has to report back to the state education department, the commissioner, the assembly, the Senate, and the governor's office. This is very different than the distinguished educator's responsibilities. The monitor will also ultimately be able to make decisions if that monitor cannot negotiate and work with the district itself. Then the state education department commissioner will have final say. This is a lot of oversight and a lot of control, but the important part is this. The important part is we will still allow the parents of the city of Rochester to decide who's going to represent them at the Rochester City School District.
All right, Mr. Bronson, thank you. Mr. Udelson, he went a little long, but that's okay. This is a complex issue. You'll have time. Go ahead.
Well, if you are confused after Assemblyman Bronson's answer about what the monitor will actually do, join the club, because we have had report after report. We've had public hearing after public hearing. We've had the distinguished educator who, sure, didn't have much power, but he made 84 recommendations, the first 16 of which were about governance. And the school board, which has run 7 superintendents out of town in the past 10 years, which has overspent a budget by millions and millions of dollars, they didn't listen to him. That distinguished educator actually endorsed my campaign. He sent my campaign a donation because he knows I'm going to fight for the true structural change. And with all due respect, Assemblyman Bronson, you've been in office for 10 years, during which time there have been 6 superintendents run out of town and now a 7th. And if the best that we can do is a monitor to sit around and make some suggestions and squabble with a board that is hyper-partisan and political and micromanaging, then we're going to fail another generation of kids. I believe that this is one of the biggest, both moral and economic issues facing our entire region. Everybody should care about it, and everybody should be outraged at what goes on in the district and the protection of the status quo from Albany politicians.
All right, Mr. Bronson, go ahead.
Well, that's just absolutely ridiculous. 84 recommendations, and my opponent just wants to talk about the first 17? What about the almost 70 other recommendations about academics? What about strategies on how we're going to educate our children with special needs or our children who are English language learners? Look, I'm not happy with the school board either, but I do support democracy. I'm not happy with President Trump. My opponent's not saying, let's do away with the office of the U.S. president. What we have is a democracy. And what we also have is the last example where there was a state takeover, 2002, Roosevelt School, a 5-year plan, and they left after 15 years. 15 years of the state controlling that school district. And the rate of improvement was no greater than the rate of improvement of other school districts. The Board of Regents doesn't support a takeover. It's not just me that doesn't support a takeover. People don't believe it works. We've had the proven record that it doesn't work. And at the same time, we know that a monitoring situation has worked in other school districts.
All right.
And it will work in the city of Rochester.
Now, I know Mr. Udelson's going around and respond to that. We're staying on this subject, though, and I'll turn it over to Dan Track from 13 WHAM News, who will have a question where Mr. Udelson can respond first.
Yes, sticking with the topic of RCSD, it is now under new leadership. And in the near future, as we were just hearing, we'll be working with state monitors in the hopes of keeping the system on track. Without a doubt, there are still many major challenges facing the district. What proposals do you have? How do you plan to facilitate with these monitors to benefit not only students, but taxpayers?
Sure. Well, look, students, taxpayers, families, teachers, they've all been failed by this broken system. And look, I don't think solving governance is going to solve every single issue with urban education. Don't get me wrong. But there's a reason that of those 84 recommendations, the first 16 were about governance because they impact everything else. If you don't have a competent governance system, you're not going to be able to implement these changes. So I think it doesn't bring me great joy to say that I think for a period of 3 to 5 years, the school board should be removed from power and that the state should work with Superintendent Dr. Myers-Small, who I think is great, by the way. I don't think it's so outrageous to say that the state should work with the superintendent who can work with this community to help fix a broken system. And if we want to talk about the other recommendations, Assemblyman Bronson, you mentioned multilingual education. What did the school board do last year? They cut multilingual education. You've mentioned community schools in the past. What did they do last year? They cut community schools. It seems that every time something is working, the school board manages to get in the way. And so you're right, this is an issue that, look, the kids come first. You know, the taxpayers, absolutely, this has been a huge issue. It's putting the city in a bind. It's putting everybody in a bind, especially during a pandemic. But the kids come first. And all the time we hear from Albany politicians about the voters. We always hear about the adults. It's always about the adults. It's never about the kids who don't have a voice. We need to give the kids that voice and make a system that puts them first.
All right, Mr. Bronson.
Those voters are the parents of these children. They deserve to have a say in the children's education. They deserve to have a voice. They deserve to pick who they want to be their representatives. I am not defending the current school board members. And indeed, there's a process. You want to remove them? Then there's a process to remove them. And in fact, the school board member up in Buffalo, Carl Palladino, he was removed. If you think one of the school board members are that bad, then do a process to remove them, but do not steal the parents' right to vote on who is going to run their school district. Let's keep the school district in local control with parents and children's voices being heard, while at the same time having a monitor in place to help develop strategies, work with the superintendent, and turn these struggling schools around.
All right, a brief rebuttal. Go ahead, Mr. Udelson.
Sure. So Assemblyman Bronson talked about a process to remove board members. That process is done at the state level. It's done by SED, and they haven't been able to hold these board members accountable. So when we talk about replacing board members, you know, we've had lots of school board members, and know what it usually is? It's usually a stepping stone for other office. Just 2 years ago, one of them ran for city court. He didn't get elected, so now he's back at the school district. One of them was running for assembly this year, didn't get enough votes to be on the ballot, didn't get enough petition signatures to be on the ballot, and now she's running for Board of Elections Commissioner. This is a political body, and if we don't reform the system, the way they're elected, the way they are governed, then you are going to continue having people year after year who can't get the job done for our kids. It's time we start talking about the system and reforming the system and not talk about individuals.
Let's turn to Jeremy Mole from City Newspaper for our next question. Harry Bronson will respond first. Jeremy.
It seems that nobody really knows what's going to be happening with schools this fall, but at the same time, many parents are going to be heading back to their workplaces and they'll need quality care for their children. We've heard from the state that it's broke, but regardless, what could Albany be doing right now to help families, especially low and moderate income families, with this expensive need?
So what we're doing at the state level is we have a very difficult budget year. Just like at the county and at the city, the reduction of revenues because the economy has come to practically a halt in the beginning part of the pandemic and is slowly recovering. But that has reduced revenues in income taxes and sales taxes and on and on. So what we're looking at are three proposals. One is to, we authorize the governor to borrow up to $11 billion to deal with a cash flow problem. Second, there is an opportunity to borrow from the Federal Reserve funds. And then the third is looking at our folks like Congressman Joe Morelli and Senator Schumer and having stimulus packages for our families as well as for our localities, including school districts. we are going to need that assistance, and the governor keeps requesting that assistance. I'm working with our federal representatives for that. But we're also doing things like we just did last week with the COVID-19 package, where we have allowed people who have mortgages with state-authorized banks to move the cost of their mortgages to the end of their loan and pay it back in 3 different ways.
Thank you, Mr. Bronson.
And we also have a renters assistance program where renters will be able to get assistance with their rent payments.
All right, Mr. Udelson.
Yeah, look, I agree with a lot of what the Assemblyman said. I mean, a budget is a statement of priorities, and so these are tough budget times. I certainly recognize that, but I think childcare, transportation, helping low and moderate income families get to work and have someone to watch their child, especially if schools aren't fully back in session, is paramount, because otherwise all of our businesses that need to get back up and running aren't going to have the workforce to get it done. You know, I often talk about Albany coming up with Band-Aid fixes. And so when the little boy Bryce was killed at the Tim Hortons on University Avenue, an absolutely tragic situation, many people were quick to try to blame the mother somehow. And the way that Albany reacted was to pass a bill about grease traps. And don't get me wrong, it's probably an important bill. It's probably the right thing to do. But the issue with that situation was childcare. It was that the mother was forced to choose between leaving her child at home unprotected or having the child come to work and not potentially having food on the table for her kids. I mean, these are the situations that we hear from every day of families in this city, and we need big, bold solutions to these problems and massive investments in funding from New York State to help get it done.
And we owe you 30 seconds if you want it.
Yeah, I've been working on child care subsidies and helping our families out since I've been in the Assembly. I continue to do that. I work with the Children's Agenda. They put out proposals. I carry an earned income tax credit bill that is supported by the Children's Agenda, which will help young families with child care. I also am a convener on the Rock the Future, and we oftentimes talk about the need for child care, the need for early childhood intervention, and all these other things that are along the spectrum of educating our children. But absolutely, we need to provide as much child care help as we possibly can for the parents in the city of Rochester and Henrietta and Chi-Lai.
All right, because this is the Voice of the Voter debate, we asked you to submit questions, and we've got questions for Harry Bronson and for Alex Udelson specifically. This first one comes from Sandy in Rochester, and it's directed to Harry Bronson. She asked, Mr. Bronson, on the subject of vaccines, why did you vote against the bill that got rid of non-medical exemptions for immunization of school children, despite our local health experts advising otherwise?
So my opponent wants to suggest that that vote meant that somehow I was aligned with Republicans and anti-vaxxers. It could not be further from the truth. I support vaccinations 100%. I get them myself. I encourage people to get them. I am on an HPV vaccination bill that would mandate vaccinations. My opponent's boss opposes that bill. I have voted in favor of expanding vaccinations 10 times since I've been in the Assembly, including last week to authorize pharmacists to administer a COVID-19 vaccination once one is approved and adopted. This particular bill was a reactionary bill that related to the measles outbreak that we had last year. There was no nexus made between the actual outbreak and the religious exemption. The real nexus that existed, based in science, was that far too many people were not getting the vaccination because they were listening to all that misinformation that's on the internet. I believe we need to do more education in that. And I would also add that the chair of the Assembly's Health Committee has also voted against that bill.
Mr. Udelson.
Well, Assemblyman Bronson, the reason I say that you aligned yourselves with the Republicans is because you quite literally voted with the Republicans on this bill. You know, you mentioned going with the science. All of the doctors disagreed with you. All of the public health experts disagreed with you. For those of you who don't know, there was a measles outbreak last year in Rockland County. And Assemblyman Bronson is trying to say it's not related. At the very least, Assemblyman Bronson gave a lot of credence to the conspiracy theorists and the anti-vaxxers that would have you believe that vaccines are a plot by Bill Gates and George Soros or whatever they talk about on this issue. You know, this was an important bill. There were protests across Albany. It was a high-profile debate. And I can't tell you the number of people that I've talked to that can't believe that Assemblyman Bronson voted this way. This was a bill to close the religious loophole, which was abused quite a bit by families sending their kids to school. Now, I believe in the freedom of religion, don't get me wrong, but your freedom of religion doesn't get to trump the public health of our entire community and send your kid to school unvaccinated. You voted with the Republicans, and even some Republicans voted with the Democrats on this issue. So this is a huge issue, especially in a pandemic, let alone last year during a measles outbreak.
All right, a rebuttal.
This was a very controversial bill. And in fact, many Democrats voted against this bill for the same reason I did and for the same reason the chair of the Assembly Health Committee did. And that's because the science was not presented to us in a conclusive way. The real problem here is that there's misinformation. And I don't want anybody watching this not to understand. I support vaccinations 100%. I will continue to vote for them. I will continue to push my HPV mandatory vaccination bill that my opponent's boss opposes. I will continue to fight for vaccinations, expand them like we just did with the COVID-19 vaccine.
Do you disagree with your boss on this one that he's referring to?
I absolutely do. And look, reasonable people can disagree. I have told the mayor that I disagree with her on this issue. I don't think anybody's ever worked for someone that they agree with on 100% of the issues. But let's think about the math here. We know the Republicans were against the bill. So do you really think if lots and lots of Democrats were also against the bill that it would have passed? It wouldn't have. Just Google the bill, look up the vote. Most Democrats voted for it. Most Republicans and Assemblyman Bronson voted against it.
The next question from a citizen comes from Seth in Rochester, and Mr. Udelson will respond. It's directed to you. Seth says the following: in the debate I watched on Channel 8, you called yourself a policy advisor to President Obama. My understanding was that you coordinated visits for sports teams at the White House. What was your actual experience in Washington?
Sure. Thank you for that question. That was part of my job, was coordinating visits for sports teams, and it was also working with leagues and teams and athletes on key issues like the Zika virus and different things related to the MLB's trip to Cuba when they reopened diplomatic relations. Another big piece of my job was working with mayors and governors and state legislators across the country on key policy issues like criminal justice reform, the affordable health care outreach, and some other key issues. And so, frankly, I'll be honest, even if my job were just getting President Obama coffee, it would have been the honor of a lifetime still. That wasn't my job. I don't think I've ever pretended to be the vice president or the secretary of state. But at the end of the day, I got to work on some incredibly impactful things. I got to learn from some of the best. And in that intergovernmental relations role, working with governors and mayors across this country, I got to see what was working in certain cities and states, and I got to see what wasn't working. And I think that experience will be invaluable because now I have worked in the federal government, I've worked in the local government, and in both of those jobs, I've worked with state governments. And so I hope that I bring a lot of experience to this task.
All right, Mr. Bronson.
I am very pleased to have worked on and to be part of the only state that instituted President Obama's charge, My Brother's Keeper. That was a task to put together a strategy by which we could better educate our young men of color. It was driven by the Board of Regents. I participated in the work groups, and we ultimately put forth a number of objectives that we have continued to fund, and I have advocated for that funding every single year. I'm a huge fan of President Obama. I wish he was in office still. But what I take from President Obama is working on those issues to help our young men of color, but more importantly, to be a progressive leader that will get results. And you've seen my results throughout my tenure. I want to continue to work on your behalf for those kind of progressive results.
All right, short response there. Mr. Udelson.
Sure. No, I'm intimately familiar with the My Brother's Keeper campaign. One of the projects I worked on was actually the My Brother's Keeper Community Challenge, getting to work that really came out of my office, the Office of Public Engagement and Cabinet Affairs, and many of the staff that helped create that program are supporting my campaign. And so I definitely appreciate the Assemblyman's involvement in that, and our city school district has been involved with that. It's an incredibly important initiative, and I think that the experience I bring to this office isn't just Albany experience. It's seen what's worked across the country. It's working for President Obama and as Chief of Staff for the City of Rochester.
Our next question is going to come from Tariq Spence, and Harry Bronson will respond first. Tariq.
As we start to come out of this pandemic, hopefully staying out of this pandemic, I wanted to ask you, there basically were no fail-safes for anything when it comes to this pandemic. Everything from unemployment to education, big business, small business, all were affected. What fail-safes are you planning to implement should we ever face anything like this again?
Mr. Bronson.
That's a good question, Tariq. So we've already taken some steps. Last week, we passed a bill that would require all nursing homes and other residential facilities to put together a plan of action when facing a pandemic. They have to report that plan to the Department of Health, which then will review and approve the plan. So I was happy to co-sponsor that and move that bill forward. I have had numerous conversations with the Commissioner of Department of Labor about the unemployment insurance situation and the pandemic unemployment assistance, which is for self-employed folks. So we need to look at what fell apart there. I mean, part of it was the technology, part of it was the sheer volume of people giving claims. And so we're working with the Department of Labor to make adjustments so if we face this again, that they're equipped to handle it. I also have called for a public hearing. I'm chair of the Aging Committee, myself, and the chair of the Health Committee. We have called for a public hearing on nursing homes. Let's find out what went wrong so that we can then put corrective action forward.
Okay, Mr. Udelson.
Sure. So I think on the public health front, I think the state has done actually a really good job, especially the governor, at taking leadership in the absence of federal leadership and moving us forward on a lot of key issues. I think having a stockpile of PPE, especially going into this fall where we could potentially see another outbreak, is critically important. I think even, this pandemic has shown us what happens when you have a healthcare system that's tied to your employment status. When you have 40 million people go unemployed with a snap of a finger, that's something that is an issue for us. And so I think looking at the New York Health Act is something that is absolutely critical. I also think looking at innovative ideas, when Andrew Yang brought up a universal basic income, everybody looked at him funny, and then a few months later, everybody kind of said, maybe that's something that we should look at. So when it comes to innovative programs to make sure that people always have, enough money to put food on the table for their family, that's something that I want to support, and so that we have the fail-safes in place for if this ever happens again.
30 seconds, Mr. Bronson.
Sure. I'm happy once again my opponent has said that he wants to push a bill that I co-sponsor. I've co-sponsored ever since I've been in the Assembly, and that is the New York State Health Act. It is sponsored primarily by the chair of the Health Committee. I have participated in panel discussions. I have spoken about it throughout the state. I will continue to push for the New York State Health Act because employer-funded health care is not the right way to be. I also participate in the Rochester-Monroe County Anti-Poverty Initiative. I'm proud to say today I actually voted as one of the policies in the executive committee to promote the universal income for all. So I'm there doing the work, and I look forward to continuing to do that work.
Let's go to Brian Sharp from the Democrat and Chronicle for our next question. Alex Udelson will answer first.
Mr. Udelson, you've lauded School 17 as a model community school, but while it has made many significant gains, it still lags the district in English and math scores with an overall proficiency rate of 9% or less. Its chronic absenteeism rate is among the worst in the district. What makes this your model, and why should voters see you as the agent of change?
Thanks, Brian. So School 17, for those of you who don't know, is a school in the Josana neighborhood, which was struggling mightily before it was turned into a community school. A community school is a school that has wraparound services for the entire neighborhood. And they have actually seen huge improvements during the time that they have been a community school. And you're right that some of the statistics still lag behind, but I've visited that school many times. The mayor had her State of the City address there, and there's a few things that are important. One, I just mentioned, the community school, which, of course, by the way, the school board, which really can't run this district in a competent way, they tried to defund a couple years ago. They also tried to deny that principal tenure when it was working. And then on top of that, multilingual education. It's a bilingual school. The principal there, Katerina Leone, is bilingual. I don't know the exact ratio of students that are bilingual, but it's many of them. And of course, the school board disinvested from multilingual education this past year. And so we are constantly fighting the school board on the things that are working. Meanwhile, we're driving 6 superintendents in 10 years out of town and overspending budgets by millions of dollars. So School 17 can be a model for our community. I'd love to see every school turn into a community school if it has those resources and those wraparound services for families and serves as a hub for the whole community. And that is certainly working, but we still have a long ways to go.
Mr. Brunson.
I am a strong supporter of community schools. I fight for funding for it each year. I want that funding to be separate from the foundation aid. We have arguments with the governor about that each year. Let me just read from someone who knows this better than I or my opponent, and that's a teacher. Students with an achievement gap also have an income gap, a healthcare gap, a housing gap, a family gap, and a safety gap, just to name a few. If we truly want to improve educational outcomes, these are the real issues that must be addressed. Community schools address those issues. It provides services not only for the student, but also for the student's parents, so that that student can overcome the barriers of poverty, the barriers of trauma, the barriers of not having enough food, the barriers of maybe sleeping in a car at night. If we really want to turn the Rochester City School District around, we have to do that with partnership throughout the district and include nonprofits, include the social services agencies at the county, and we need to provide those wraparound services. And you can do that through community-based schools.
Mr. Udelson, 30 seconds.
Sure, I agree with much of what that teacher wrote. I think we should send that letter to the school board, which has chosen to disinvest in community schools. You know, there are still structural issues with this district, and we can't lose sight of the long history of racial segregation in our entire community in addressing schools. We can't ignore poverty and homelessness. Of course, those are situations that until they are made improved, we won't see a 100% graduation rate at RCSD. I'm not saying governance is going to solve that, but just because of those issues, we can't let the school board continue to fail our kids year after year.
Thank
we
you.
can do two things at once, folks.
The next question comes from Dan Schrack from 13WAM. Harry Bronson responds first.
Yes, so we learned today that phase 3 of the reopening process in New York State begins tomorrow. Many restaurants will be opening their doors for the first time in months. Whether it's because people didn't have extra money or because people just couldn't spend it or stores were closed, many small businesses, which we're fortunate to have in this area, have taken a serious financial hit. We've seen the failures of the payroll protection plan, especially during the first round. What do you have planned to help get this area back on financial track and help these small business owners?
Yeah, we need to look at the regional economic development councils as a conduit to help these small businesses. For far too often, those councils have helped the larger businesses in our area, and they've done a decent job of helping to retain and create jobs. But what we need to do is use that model and move it toward a way to help out our small businesses. Look, I'm a small business owner myself. I run a very small coffee shop in the South Wedge. My partner and I had to close our doors because we just couldn't sustain being open with just a takeout business. So we're revamping what we're going to do. And the Finger Lakes Regional Economic Development Council can help in a couple of ways. They can help businesses understand what they need to do so that they can reopen. Once reopened, they can help them with small grants and things of that nature to be able to buy the equipment and do what they need to do to reopen. And then lastly, last week when we passed the COVID-19 package, one of those bills that we passed that I co-sponsored was to authorize the industrial development agencies to offer small loans to small businesses, because right now they're not entitled to do that. So that's one way that will also help out small businesses.
Mr. Udelson.
Sure. So, I mean, when we talk about these phases, you know, there's no magic wand to reopen the economy. And if we don't have a situation where customers and employees feel safe going back to their place of work, then those businesses aren't going to be able to succeed. I've talked to countless restaurant owners who have told me if they can only open up at 50% capacity or even 80% capacity, that doesn't work. And if we don't see an influx of people who feel safe but are also willing to patronize those businesses and are in a financial situation where they can, then we're going to be able we're going to continue to struggle to really get this economy back on track. So I think there's two specific things that we can do. I was really grateful to see that the county executive, Adam Bello, was offering 500 masks to every restaurant. I think the deadline might have been today, but I think that was a great idea. We need to ensure at the state level that there is PPE available for every business owner, especially those that are public-facing like restaurants. The second thing that I think we need to do is make a massive investment in testing until we get a vaccine that I hope we trust the public health experts in implementing. You know, that is something that if all of the employees and all of the patrons, if we're able to find a way to test them quickly so that we know that everybody is safe inside that restaurant, then I think people will feel safe going and frequenting restaurants, especially in small quarters like there are many restaurants in the city. So I think those are two things that we can do that would have a huge impact for our small and medium-sized businesses and restaurants.
And Mr. Bronson, I'm about to get much more stern with my time. 30 seconds. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Evan. So another thing that we're working on right now, throughout the week, we have Zoom conference calls with the governor's office, and we talk about strategies. One of the strategies we have been talking about is getting the testing equipment in the hands of small businesses as well as nursing homes and other folks, and trying to develop strategies to make that happen, or at least to make it so it's not cost prohibitive. So I'm going to continue to work with the governor's office to find strategies in which we can help these small businesses.
Let's go to Jeremy Moll from City Newspaper for the next question. Alex Udelson responds first.
In a post on your website, you called for a Vision Zero plan for Rochester, which in oversimplified terms is a approach to street design and transportation planning that aims to eliminate all traffic fatalities. But that seems like a effort that would have to start at City Hall, and where you've been a top advisor to the mayor, and there is no stated Vision Zero plan for the city of Rochester. How would a state legislator fit in there?
Sure. So states provide funding for transportation, and there's lots of projects that we have tried to do at the city that we just don't have enough funding for to be able to do some of the things that will really make our city have that urban environment that makes young people especially, but families of all ages want to live, work, and play in the city. Things like bike lanes, things like sidewalks, things like better lighting. We actually do have a plan at the city. It's called our Complete Streets Plan, which basically, it's not exactly the same as Vision Zero, but it does call for any time we are resurfacing a road or reconstructing a road where it's possible that we have bike lanes, that we have multimodal transportation. My office at City Hall led the charge to bring car share to Rochester, which is going to be an electric car share program, so the added benefit of sustainability. We brought bike share, which even though they had to pull out because of some financial issues, it was a success, and there were people biking across the city being healthier and more sustainable. And so we're working on innovative things at the city. I think there's more that we could do for sure, don't get me wrong, but a lot of that requires resources. And so bringing those resources at the state level is one of the key jobs of a state assembly person. And we've just seen far too many instances in the past few months, even in this district in Henrietta, of young children getting hit and killed by cars. Enough is enough.
Mr. Bronson.
So I've been very successful in bringing those kind of funds to this district. Funds that help put sidewalks in the town of Henrietta, funds that are helping in the Mount Hope street redevelopment. I worked with the Commissioner Norm Jones at the city to get those funds so that he could in turn use those in the development of Mount Hope. I continue to work with Norm Jones on other things to bring money to the city of Rochester. I was instrumental in getting funding 2 years in a row to help the city deal with electronic waste that they were required to dispose of if a resident put it on the curbside. So there's many ways I've been helping. CHIPS, which is the funding that helps to fill the potholes and things of that nature. Millions and millions of dollars brought to this area in CHIPS. And then also importantly with transportation. Up until this year, because of COVID-19, record increases.
Okay.
To help out our transit authority so that mass transportation can be utilized by many people in the city.
Keep it tight, sir. Go ahead.
Sure, I'll be very quick. You know, lots of our legislators have been helpful in receiving and securing those grants. But what I far too often don't see is those legislators going to the community and saying, what would you like to see here? Not just calling the town supervisor or calling a town board member, but actually going to the community and saying, what do you want for your community? That's what I pledge to do for the citizens of Rochester, Henrietta, and Shiloh.
We got time for one more citizen question, and it comes from a viewer named Jerome in Rochester. Harry Bronson responds first. We got about time for about a minute each. He wants to know, how will you expand internet access for impoverished neighborhoods? Mr. Bronson.
Yeah, we have funding at the state level that I've supported to facilitate more broadband, and I'll continue to support those efforts. We also passed a bill that authorized school districts to expand internet access. I know that the Rochester City School District is working on a proposal related to that.
All right, Mr. Udelson.
Yeah, broadband should be treated like a public utility. We actually looked into at the city whether the city could finance its own system, and the research just really isn't there yet. It's not something that we have the finances to do. But we have lots of philanthropists. We have, Greenlight, Tom Golisano can hopefully cough up some money to really make this a competitive area. Because if you look at the city of Rochester, you can look at the classic map of poverty, and the internet access almost directly outlines that map in the city of Rochester. And so when it comes to working with companies like Greenlight and making it easier for all companies to expand in the city of Rochester, that's actually what we've been doing. We've been improving our permit office and making sure that that broadband is a priority. And so I believe in working with both the utilities and the residents to get this sort of thing done for our community.
Neither one of you are going to like this, but this is close to a yes-no just based on time. Single-payer health care, Mr. Udelson, will you vote for if you're elected to Albany?
Yes.
That was fast.
Yes.
Mr. Bronson, that's a yes. Governor Cuomo has resisted calls for a billionaire's tax or an ultramillionaire's tax, calls from his left generally to pay for some of these initiatives, or at least to pay for some of the impact of COVID-19. Mr. Bronson, do you support an ultramillionaire's or a billionaire's tax?
I do. I'm co-sponsor on a bill that does that.
Mr. Udelson.
For the most part, I just don't want to loop local business owners that are doing a good job, like the CEO of Zweigels or something like that, in with financial services folks in New York City. But generally, yes.
All right, it's time for some closing statements tonight. Each of you will have 60 seconds to deliver your closing statement. It was determined by a coin toss before we went on the air. And we had Mr. Udelson first in the opening, Mr. Bronson first in the closing.
Once again, thank you to the Voice of the Voters for doing this, and thank you all for listening in and learning more about our platforms and what our experience is. You know me. I am a progressive leader that has gotten results. I will continue to do that. I know that these are difficult times. We're facing a health and an economic crisis, and now we also finally are addressing head-on racism. You know my mantra. No matter who you are, what you look like, where you come from, who you love, how you identify, we all have dignity. And with that dignity, we all deserve full equality, justice, and an opportunity to succeed. I have fought for that as an activist. I have fought for that when I ran nonprofits. I have fought for that as your assembly member. We have work to do to reach our ideal of equality for everyone, especially people of color. You know I have the value, and you know I have the principles to continue that fight and to stand side by side with our community of color and all the other diverse folks we have in our community.
Thank you, sir.
So that we can reach our ideal and create dignity, respect, and equality for every one of our citizens.
Mr. Udelson.
Well, thanks again to all of our media partners and for you for listening in and being thoughtful with your vote. Like I said at the start, I consider Assemblyman Bronson a good person. I consider him a friend. I hope he does after this race as well. But there are some big issues that we face in this community. And you know, when I launched this campaign, I said that I wasn't going to take a dollar from PACs or corporations because I believe in representing you, the people of Rochester, Henrietta, and Shiloh, when it comes to big issues like the city school district, like healthcare, like public health crises, and so much more. You know, I just found out before we went on the air that an Albany PAC will be spending $100,000 to protect Assemblyman Bronson. $100,000, that's more than my campaign budget in one contribution, in one TV buy. This is what we're dealing with in Albany. We're dealing with special interests that are able to drown out the voices of the people. And I promise to you that on these big systems, whether it's the city school district, whether it's vaccines in our public health crisis, my only agenda will be you, the people of the 138th District. Thank you for tuning in.
And that concludes tonight's Voice of the Voter debate with the Democratic candidates for the 138th Assembly District, Harry Bronson and Alex Udelson. Thank you to the candidates for taking part. To those of you who submitted questions and to our panel of journalists from our community, Tariq Spence of WDKX, Dan Schrack of 13 Wham, Brian Sharp from the Democrat and Chronicle, and Jeremy Mole from City Newspaper. A reminder, early voting is from June 13th through June 21st. You can also vote by absentee ballot or head to the polls on primary day, of course, June 23rd. All the information you need is on the Monroe County Board of Elections website. I'm Evan Dawson from WXXI. From all of us, thanks for watching. Good night.